Welcome to another fascinating episode of Psych with Sigmund. I'm your host, Sigmund, and today we're going to explore a psychological phenomenon that affects us all, often without us even realizing it, the false consensus effect. This concept is crucial in understanding how our perceptions of reality can be influenced by our own biases and social surroundings. So, what is the false consensus effect? Simply put, it's the tendency for people to overestimate the extent to which others share their beliefs, values, or attitudes. For instance, if you're passionate about environmental issues, you might assume that most of your friends and acquaintances feel the same way, even if they don't explicitly express their views. This phenomenon is not just limited to opinions. It can also apply to behaviors, such as assuming that others engage in similar habits or activities. The concept of false consensus effect emerged in the 1970s through the work of psychologists Thomas Gilovich, Kenneth Savitsky, and Victoria Husted Medvec. They found that people tend to overestimate the extent to which their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are shared by others. This bias can lead to misunderstandings, miscommunications, and conflicts in our personal and professional relationships. One major psychological theory that explains false consensus effect is social identity theory. According to this framework, we define ourselves by the groups we belong to and tend to perceive our own group as more diverse and representative of the broader population than it actually is. For example, if you are a fan of a particular sports team, you might assume that most people in your community support the same team, even if that's not the case. Another important factor contributing to false consensus effect is the availability heuristic. This cognitive bias refers to our tendency to judge the likelihood of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. If we're surrounded by people who share our views or engage in similar behaviors, it's easier for us to recall those instances and assume that they are more common than they actually are. Research has consistently shown that false consensus effect is a pervasive phenomenon across various domains, including politics, social issues, and consumer behavior. For instance, studies have found that people tend to overestimate the number of others who share their political views or support the same causes. This can lead to a false sense of security or consensus, which can be problematic in decision-making and problem-solving contexts. In recent years, the rise of social media has amplified the false consensus effect. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram create echo chambers, where we're exposed to information that confirms our existing biases and makes us less likely to consider alternative viewpoints. A study published in 2019 found that people who use social media more frequently are more likely to exhibit false consensus effect, as they're more likely to be exposed to information that reinforces their own views. So, why does understanding the false consensus effect matter? For one, it can help us become more empathetic and open-minded. By recognizing that others may not share our beliefs or values as much as we think, we're encouraged to engage in more constructive dialogue and listen to opposing views. In therapeutic settings, acknowledging the false consensus effect can be particularly useful. It helps individuals recognize how their perceptions of social reality might be distorted, leading to misunderstandings or conflicts with others. A classic example of false consensus effect in action is the bystander effect. Imagine you're walking down a busy street and witness someone in distress, such as a person having a heart attack. If you assume that someone else will help, you might be less likely to intervene yourself. However, if you recognize that others may not share your sense of responsibility or urgency, you're more likely to take action. In real-world applications, understanding false consensus effect can inform strategies for effective communication, conflict resolution, and community building. For instance, in workplace settings, recognizing the potential for false consensus effect can help teams avoid groupthink and foster more inclusive decision-making processes. In educational settings, teachers can use this concept to promote critical thinking and encourage students to consider diverse perspectives. Suppose you're a manager at a company, and you're considering implementing a new policy that you believe will be widely supported by your employees. However, if you assume that everyone shares your enthusiasm without actually asking for their input, you might be surprised to find that many employees have concerns or reservations. By recognizing the potential for false consensus effect, you can take steps to solicit feedback and address potential issues before they become major problems. In conclusion, the false consensus effect is a powerful reminder that our perceptions are not always as accurate as we think they are. It highlights the importance of seeking diverse perspectives and questioning our assumptions about what others believe or value. As we navigate our complex social worlds, it's essential to balance our natural tendency to seek consensus with a critical awareness of our own biases. By acknowledging and addressing false consensus effect, we can foster more inclusive communities, engage in more meaningful conversations, and perhaps most importantly, develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and those around us. So, the next time you find yourself assuming that everyone shares your views or values, take a step back and ask yourself, is this really true, or am I just experiencing the false consensus effect? Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.